Okay. After a long 2-week break, we are back. Just give me one moment as usual, just to make sure things are up and running as needed. Got some small changes to my setup since we last streamed 2 weeks ago. So just want to make sure everything is working as expected, and then we'll jump right in. I'm going to pin a form in the chat. This is my Google form, whatever you call it. Just questions that I will answer live on stream. I do have one that I forgot to answer from a couple weeks back. So if you want to have anything anonymously asked that I will answer on stream, you can fill out that form. And I'll make sure that is in the comment or the description of the YouTube video as well for those who are catching up after the fact. But let me just make sure our audio is coming through okay. And then we will jump right in, as I said. Okay, we're live. That's a good start. Yeah, all right, nailed it. So, hello everyone. Welcome back to another week of Future Group Friday after a little delay. I was out of town last week and obviously holiday stuff going on. So, hope everyone had a nice Christmas yesterday for those who celebrate and any other holiday in and around that. I know there are quite a few happening. I think today's Kwanzaa. We got Boxing Day going on. Hanukkah, obviously. All that stuff. So, hope everyone had a good week. And let's get going. So, for those who are new to this stream, my name is Cheese Doodle. I am a member of the TagPro Steering Committee and Development Team, which is the two groups tasked with coming up with new ideas for the game TagPro, how to implement them, and then actually announcing those updates to the community. And then, if you don't know what TagPro is, because you're new to all of this, TagPro is a free-to-play capture the flag game. You can see the homepage in front of me right now. It's 4v4, played live right in your browser. Capture the flag, just that game that you played on the schoolyard back when you were a kid, but for computers and people on computers. So this stream is going to be going through a couple things. We have a usual routine of starting with some updates from development progress. So we'll go through all the things that have been pushed to the TagPro repo recently, things that went live on the site. We had some pretty big updates about a week ago that I wasn't able to talk about because I was not streaming last week. So we'll go through some of that stuff. Then we will move on to our suggestion board, which you can see up there as the feedback tab on the homepage. And after we get through all of that, we're going to move over to our roadmap, which we've been working on for the last couple of streams, trying to get together the actual timeline that we're working on as we get further along with the game. So along the way, if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment in the chat, or if you're on the YouTube, again, feel free to leave a response there, or the Reddit post. Anything that you comment, I will try to get to it at some point. So without further ado, starting with development updates. So I'm going to skip through most of the stuff from the week before this current week, just because it was a while ago now. At that time, just for a little refresher, we were working on getting season 1 of Ranked up and running. So those following closely, you'll be aware it is up and running. So thankfully, we were able to keep that timeline. We were able to get it started last Monday, as we had hoped. So a lot of what was happening at that time was making sure that the season 0 flares were implemented correctly. We had a little bug that created a little bit of a delay between season 0 and 1, where players who had played ranked games were supposed to earn that match flare and were not earning that match flare. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, the match flare you can see right here. Anyone who played any number of games in ranked season 0 should have earned this flare. And we had a problem with that initially. We fixed that problem and we should be good to go now. So that is up. Then we had a bunch of back-end stuff that had no changes on the front end, where we were just making sure that the data that we keep for each ranked season was actually stored in the way that it was most efficient and easiest to fetch in the future, which is going to be relevant for some of the other things I'll talk about in a minute. But we just had to take a couple of collections, put them together so we weren't duplicating data. It's nothing changed on the front end. So that was the majority of 13th, the 14th, the 15th. Just a lot of back and forth on that same topic. So scroll through all that. And then on the 16th, we were working on boundary calculations. We realized there were some problems with the daily recalculation. And that's really relevant for the leaderboard and for the tiers next to players' names. We were having some problems with where these cutoffs actually are, and making sure that when you recalculate them every day that you're not you're not bouncing all over the place. Like, you don't want players to go from a cutoff of 898, for example, all the way up to a cutoff of 930. That'd be a really big jump. So we have this, we call it smoothing, where the boundary slowly works its way up or down depending on the players who are active. Also very exciting, for the first 2 weeks, we have added a system, and we added this before, but we're seeing it now, where in the first 2 weeks, if there are enough active players to justify another tier, we don't schedule that tier expansion, we just have the tier expansion. And that's why you can see we currently are up to 8 tiers, which is very exciting. We have a full distribution of players. Now, the way that we were able to do that when it was not happening in Season 0 is twofold. We had changed the calculation for the number of players required per tier to increase it, but we decreased the number of active games required, or number of recent games played to be considered active. So you don't need to be playing 15 games per week for the entire season. You need to be playing 10 games per week for the entire season. We are planning to add a temporal component to that, so it's only in recent weeks, because in Season 0, we had that 6-month-long season. Some players had played a bunch early on or had played none early on, and then the same thing at the end of the season. Now, we were only considering players who were active if they had been doing that the entire time for 6 months. So we had a lot more players than it looked like, just because a lot of players were playing really recently, hadn't been playing at the start of the season, weren't considered active because they weren't averaging 15 games over that entire 6-month period. So now, with an early season, we only have a couple of weeks. You only need to have about 30, or no, I think we're still at, are we under 2 weeks still? We might still be at 10 games to be considered active, and it'll jump to 20 in a couple of days, or maybe tomorrow. No, it'll be Monday. It'll be Monday, yeah. By Monday, it'll jump to 20 games to be considered active. So anybody above 10 right now is considered active, which is how we're able to get to 8 tiers. So we were just working on that behind the scenes. Then we had some issues with just startup stuff, making sure things happened at the right time, so that the leaderboard is cached correctly, and you can see recent updates instead of old updates on that leaderboard. We added a new developer, which I'm not going to talk too much about, but we're hoping to get them onboarded soon, which is exciting. Then we've got a bunch of mod tool related updates, which is unfortunate because this is never something that I want to be focusing on in truth. But we had a player, and you might have seen this Reddit post up recently, where US East had a troll, we're calling him, who was just joining lobbies and messing them up, and people were reporting them, and we were banning them, and then they were finding ways around the bans, and it was a whole thing. We pushed a couple of fixes over the next few days, trying to fix all the workarounds they had found. And there were only like 2 or 3 of them, but they were a little annoying to patch. It's stuff that we knew was a problem, but we didn't have the reason to prioritize those issues because we're trying to work on the game, not keeping people out of the game. But they were pretty persistent, so we ended up expediting those, and that took a couple days of my time, which was unfortunate. But that was the 17th, 18th, and a good chunk of the 19th as well. On the 19th, we also were working on concurrent updates, and I don't know if this has gone live or not yet. I think it has. So we were having a problem. We realized that sometimes on the leaderboard here, you would have a player who finished a game and they were in the correct order, but their number was off, or vice versa. They had like something was wrong about the ordering, and you were seeing the wrong headers sometimes, where you would have like champion, challenger, contender, and then like a challenger again, and it looked terrible because it was wrong. And we realized that it was happening because there were games finishing at the same time. So say you have 2 different games in 2 different sections. They both finish at the same time, but they have players who are close together. If both of those updates go in at the same time, the cache gets messed up because it doesn't know which one is actually the true final answer. And so what we did is just set up a queue basically for the updates. So if you come in and you have an update, and that update is currently happening and another game finishes, instead of just also running that update at the same time, it'll say, oh, there's already an update going on. I'm going to wait until that's done, and now I'm going to do my update. So it just keeps everything synchronous and makes sure that the leaderboard actually looks the way that we want it to look, which is pretty straightforward. So more moderation stuff on the 20th. And then now we finally moved over into things that are going to be in the next release. So one big change on the way that I'm excited for is the profile chart. So next season, we're going to be having a graph here. If you played TagPro matchmaking, you might remember they had like a updates of where you had been every day of that season, up and down. You can follow the line. We have our version of that on the way coming in this next release, which is very fun. We also are separating out the profile page, which is something I've wanted to do for a long time. Because right now the profile, it has a lot of information. It's good. It's got your name. It's got your rank data, all the information you need, your flares, stats, and your settings, but it's it's kind of just a lot of stuff in the same place, all doing different things. So we've separated it out into 3 separate things. So you've got your stats page, which is going to be kind of this section here without the flare. And then we're adding in that ranked graph that we talked about a minute ago. Then we're separating out the flares into their own tab, which is going to be kind of a precursor to the shop that we're working on. I'll get to that in a minute. And then the third tab will be your actual settings. So just keeping those things, because they're not really related, right? Your profile stats and your settings are 2 different things. They don't need to be on the same page. So we're keeping them in the same place, but just giving them their own tab, which gives us a little more freedom to do different things with them. So that'll be something we want some feedback on when it goes live. So I'll let you know when that happens. And obviously you'll see the update posts that go up. So there's a lot of conversation going on with that branch, making sure things look the way that we want, making sure that things work the way they should, and cleaning up the code. So that was 3 or 4 days worth of conversation right there. Some more updates to the leaderboard. And now we're obviously approaching the week of Christmas, which a lot of our developers are occupied for. So things slowed down a little bit here. Yeah, it's all just the same stuff I've been talking about. We pushed a couple hot fixes for the leaderboard just because we didn't want that to keep getting messed up. And we kept pushing the moderation fixes, obviously, to make sure that person couldn't get in. Yeah, that mod thing really messed up our time. I took like 4 days of my time just working on that only, which is unfortunate. But okay, then we have a different fix for the... I don't know if this has gone live yet. I don't think it has gone live yet. We have a different fix for the skill score calculations. We are looking at the distribution of players and how they got there and when they got there on the leaderboard here. And we think we had a little bit of an overcorrection to a previous issue. So we had talked about the skill inflation before, where players at the top would just keep expanding up at the top because there was no system. Like if you kept playing more games, you kept getting more skill that was coming out of nowhere. We fixed that problem, but we also added a different fix that it's kind of like Orchid would do a better job of explaining this than I would, Maelstrom. It's kind of like a braking system where if you win a bunch of games, you get a lot of momentum. It says, oh, you should be ranked a lot higher, but there was no way to stop that. So you might overshoot the top of where you're supposed to be and end up way higher than you should. So we added a braking system that says, okay, if you're shooting up to the top, we should understand when you're not actually continuing that momentum, start to slow you down a little bit. And that same system has come back and bit us in the butt a little bit because it's also stopping players who should not be at a certain level from falling out of that level. So it's kind of guaranteeing that if you got up to the top, you just kind of stay there, and it's really hard for you to not be at the top anymore. So we're looking at some nuanced things that I honestly shouldn't try to explain because I'll mess it up, but it's called a tau factor. If you've been following Bambi's ranked Discord, I think there's been some conversation in there about it, but basically all it's trying to do is make sure people are ranked the way that they should be ranked, where they should be ranked. So that's the easy version, and I'm going to move on before I say anything completely wrong and dumb. So we've got that, and then we've got more conversation about the graph on the profile. We've got a change to private events coming in the next release, where if you click on a player's ball, it does not pop up with that report page or mute page. Mostly relevant for egg ball players. If they're using the TagPro script, they try to click on a player or try to click in a certain direction to pass the egg. If they clicked on a player, it would have that pop up, and they don't want that because there's nobody to report there. So disabling clicks on player balls when you're actually in a game in private games should fix that problem. And then some conversation about the gravity well strength, which is going to be in the next release. That's with private groups. If you have a gravity well, you can make the gravity well stronger so it pulls things in more, or you can make it inverted and it can push things away instead of pulling players in, which is pretty cool. So that should go in the next release. And then a small tweak to some back-end logging that's not relevant for anything front-end. And that brings us to today. So there are, I believe the number is 8 open branches that I've touched on briefly in some of the past streams. So we'll get those in and hopefully announced in the next couple of weeks. But that is it for development over the last 2 weeks. So things should ramp up now that the holiday stuff is wrapping up as well. And I will talk to you about that next week. So I'm going to move from there over to something very similar to what I was just talking about, which is a question we got on the Future Group Friday forum. This was a few weeks ago, so I apologize to whoever submitted this. It said, are there any plans for egg ball? It is a favorite by many in the community. Can we have ranked egg ball, smaller maps? Can we automatically add the TagPro script into the default game? And so the answer to the most of that is yes. The question is more of a when and a how than an if. The problem with adding egg ball into the base game, and I've talked in DMs with a couple people about this, is that we just added a neutral flag queue, and you can see that the wait times, they're not exploding. It's not like it's a massive problem, but it's definitely not as efficient as just having a single queue was. I think that it's good to keep neutral flag because it adds some variety for players, and I think it's something that specific people really wanted. But you can make that same argument for egg ball. So I think the problem is that that's just one step too far for where we are right now. When that changes is in the event of a Steam release. If we do get a larger player base, that's an easy thing to say, okay, that's going towards the top of the list, adding in probably casual first before it goes into a ranked rotation, because if you add in ranked egg ball, you have a 15-degree requirement, the same that you have for casual games to ranked games now for capture the flag and neutral flag. But if you only have ranked egg ball, you're filtering out players with no degrees, and then you're still going to have new players in egg ball, because you can get to 15 degrees without ever playing an egg ball game. A lot of players in the community who play capture the flag and neutral flag are 15 degrees and have not ever played egg ball, or played it once back in 2007 when it was an Easter event. So not 2007, 2017. So if you're going to add egg ball as a ranked game, you're going to have a mix of new players and old players, but it's not going to be obvious which is which. And I think that it's going to cause some friction between the players who have been playing a lot and the players who don't really play at all. So if you keep it as a casual game mode initially, you can get players initiated to the game mode. You can allow players to get degrees while only playing egg ball. Then you can add it in as a ranked game mode, and you can have that transition. Again, this is something only possible with a larger player base. You can't do this with the numbers that we have right now. So that's the easy plan for egg ball. Ranked egg, it's talked about smaller maps. I think I mentioned that on stream 2 weeks ago. We do have a branch that is currently in development for allowing custom maps with egg ball, which I'm very excited for. It's also going to come with the hockey game mode for those who are aware of that game mode. That was the 2023 winter event, if I'm not mistaken. Similar mechanics, you're passing a puck instead of an egg, and everything's on ice, so it moves a little bit differently than the egg ball map. But for both of those, we're going to have custom maps where you can go into the Fortunate Maps editor, like your Capture the Flag game modes, and you can upload those maps and play them with the egg ball settings. So I'm very excited to see how that plays out. I think that it's really the one thing that was missing from egg ball was the ability to mess around with the map. I don't think that super complicated maps are going to work great with the mode, but more interesting than just a rectangle, I think, is a pretty easy sell for a lot of people. So we'll see how that plays out. And then can we automatically add the TagPro script into the default game? I think that's a no-brainer. I think the biggest things with that script are what I just mentioned, where if you click on a player, it does not pop up the report screen. That's going to go in before egg ball is even considered for casual. And then I think the other big thing with that is the holding to pass. So there's a mechanic where if somebody passes you the egg, you need to click to pass it away. But in this script, if you are holding down your click before the egg actually arrives, the same frame that it gets to you, you will then try to pass it away. So it only stays with you for that single frame in between if you're holding down your key press while the egg comes in and collides with your ball. So it's an easy thing for defenders, I think, is how they use it, because if you're about to get popped in your end zone and you don't want to hold it for very long, you can preemptively say, I'm going to throw this as soon as I get it, so that there's minimal amount of time for them to actually pop you while you have the egg. So that's very straightforward for us to add on the back end. So once that becomes, I should probably make a ticket for it. If you're the one who put that in, please make a ticket for that. Otherwise, I will have that on our roadmap behind the scenes. But front end stuff is always better for accountability. So thank you for that question. And moving on now to our candy board, which is still working. I'm not sure when it's going to turn off. So they gave us an email a couple weeks ago that said, hey, your free candy plan is being phased out or something like that, which I thought meant that we weren't going to be able to respond to people anymore. So far, we have been able to. So I know we're going to use this until it breaks, essentially. But if we do run out of time on this one, you can still submit requests as far as we can tell. I just can't come in through the canny side and say, yes, we're working on this, or no, we're not. So it'll all still be there. We are working on our own version of this separately, so hopefully that won't be too much longer before we can transition entirely. But for now, let's go to the first of a few requests that we have here. So can't kick player from a group. In a private group, a sunball joined and was being a jerk, so we tried to kick him. The system message said they were kicked and their name was gone from the group lobby page, but they were still in game. So what's happening here is the group leader tried to kick somebody from their game, and that player only left the group, not the game. That is expected behavior right now. We don't have any mechanics for players to be removed from the game, but we do have an open ticket for that to change. So let me go pull up that ticket real quick. We have, or I'm sorry, we don't have a ticket for that yet. That was something we talked about on stream about a month ago, where we were looking at more options for group leaders. One of those options was the ability to kick players from your private games. So I think Bash covered some of this. I'm going to put a planned on this because there is an in progress spec for granting group leaders the ability to kick players from their private games. That has not been assigned to a developer yet, but we will get to that hopefully in the future. Will be included when time allows. Okay. Players who were in the lowest tier from a previous season affect ELO less in new season games, maybe lowest 2 tiers. No way I get put into a game where I am playing with a tier 6 who never improved throughout the entire season. I'm not really following what this is asking me to do, in truth. I think they're saying that they don't want to play with players who were worse than them in the previous season, I think. Oh, they're saying if you were in a certain tier in season 0 and the season ends and you're in season 1, and in season 1 you are playing games early on and you are getting matched with players who are ranked much lower than you were in season 0, that if you lose those games, it shouldn't subtract from your skill score as much as if you were playing in a game with players around you. The problem with that, and this is not a problem, it's just that in between seasons, we contract the tiers down to 3. We start over, we put everybody toward the middle. I think I've talked about this on stream, where we take the extremes on both ends, the very first place player, the very last place player, and we constrict everybody toward the middle. So nobody loses their rank. You still keep your spot, but you are all back down toward the middle. And what happens there is that we throw out the number of tiers. So right now we have 8 tiers, as you can see over here, but we contract that down to just 3. You have your TagPro tier, your diamond tier, and your platinum tier. So everybody who just got contracted down is starting off in those 3 tiers. And with the tier tolerance system, it looks at the tiers that you are in to decide when matches can be created. So everybody is eligible for matches with everybody else until enough people play to get us above the cutoff for 4 tiers, 5 tiers, etc. So that first day or two, it's going to see that, and it's just a game at that point. It's not looking at, oh, this player was bad last season, so don't affect their teammates. Like, anybody can improve at any point or get worse at any point. Maybe not to the degree that this is, the degree that I'm implying, but it's still a thing. Like, you don't want to say, okay, you were bad last season, now we're going to guarantee that you're the one losing points every time you lose and not your teammates. Like, there's no reason to assume that the player who was bad last season is the only person responsible for a loss at the start of the next season. So this isn't really something that we can do. I do see why it's a thing that people are upset about. They're saying, okay, I tried so hard to earn a certain score last season. Why am I getting penalized for not doing anything differently? I'm just playing with worse players now. But it's a bit subjective. I think hopefully that point's making sense. So there's not really much we can do here. There is some change that can be made. It's sort of unrelated, which is looking at the number of players and maybe keeping more than 3 tiers at the very start. But for now, especially early on in this whole ranked system, I prefer a little bit of that Wild West to the first couple of days, kind of giving people a fresh start, giving them the opportunity to prove themselves in a little bit of a different context. There are some changes that we talked about, like the overshooting thing in the braking system that I mentioned a few minutes ago that need to be tweaked a little bit, but I don't think I want to go much more aggressive than that. So I don't know how to summarize that super concisely for a post here, but I'm going to say at the start of a season tiers are contracted down to the minimum 3, my goodness, to allow players a semi-fresh start while still preserving the order of skill score from the previous season. Due to this, there is no way to reassess the post-game updates based on the tier of a player in the previous season, because they are, I think I can leave it at that. Yeah, it's not a great explanation, but it's okay. It's close enough. 2-button chat macros. Chat macros similar to Rocket League. You can use IJKL to set 16 chat macros with only 4 buttons. Interesting. This is the first I've heard about that. I don't play Rocket League, so I'm not familiar with that system. That is not a thing people would use, I guess, is my main question. Do people actually have a need for 16 plus chat macros in game? I guess probably, especially players who are not using voice channels in competitive games. Maybe there's more specific stuff. I personally would not use this. I don't really use macros at all, but I can see the use case. I just don't know how common it is. So I'm going to put this as an under review, because it would require changing things for other players, because right now we have the single letter chat macros. Would this make that less accessible for the players who only care about the 10 or 15 that they actually use? I don't know. So I think we're going to have a conversation. Conversation required on accessibility and how this may impact players who are familiar with the current single key press system. Being able to say something like theirs TagPro versus ours TagPro might be the use case. Yeah, I think I see the justification. It's just how many people are actually going to use that for the time that, I don't know. I'll put that on the conversation list for us. We have a meeting coming up. So if people are like, yeah, that'll be really common and really popular, sure, I don't have a problem with it, but we'll see. More time before the game voids. There have been multiple times where the TagPro mobile app has glitched and not let me join. By the time I reset it, it's already voided. Wait time up to 15 minutes now. I believe this is talking about the pregame, like the 75-second timer before a ranked game starts, which is mostly seen complaints that it's too long. So I do think some people have used some real fancy macros too to let them basically send any direction. Yeah, I guess that's useful. I just don't see it being that common. But yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll see. Most feedback to date has been about the timer running for too long. We are not likely to shorten it at this time. Okay, muted signal. Perhaps a button to activate an I'm muted signal so team knows no comms and don't potentially get tilted by silence. So this is kind of funny to me, because I see the justification. I understand if players want to say like a my bad kind of thing, and their teammates get mad because they think that they're not owning the mistakes they make if they're muted. Previously, we had the animal name system where you knew a player was muted because they had a white animal name. But in ranked, you have your reserve name shown and you just don't chat. I think this is more along the lines of the requests that we've seen for like predetermined macros, where you have like a list of defaults where if you're muted, you only get the defaults, or if you are a sumball, for example, you get the defaults. I'm not sure we have decided on if or when we're going to add that, but this sounds more along those lines than anything else. Yeah, I don't see the... I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on this one, because part of the problem with the animal name system was that players were then targeting players who are muted. So this would have to be a voluntary saying, you're offering up the information that you are muted so the players are aware of that. Where if we're going through the effort of adding that, why aren't we just going through the effort of adding default macros for them to be using? So I think that this is going to be an under review, because this would likely be tied into the default macro requests we have received. Okay. Turtling an end zone should result in a cap. I think we have that. No, we don't. But I'm going to merge this into a different one anyway, because we have a thing where if players refresh while they're in the end zone, it should award them a cap. I think that we should also have if the turtle mechanic. Well, no, hold on. The turtle mechanic is a base part of the game. We've built in a turtle check to make sure that players are not turtling and popping them if they do. But in the absence of end zone gates in neutral flag, that's just a valid strategy at that point, right? If you surround your teammate and make sure they can't get popped by the other team, and then the turtle timer kicks in and it pops them, you haven't abused any like workarounds like refreshing the page or anything. That you've used a built-in game mechanic to avoid a capture. I have trouble saying that should result in a cap because it's a. Am I making sense? Like if you're using a thing that we've offered as the game, that's not breaking a rule. That shouldn't result in a penalty. But I guess it doesn't have to be the framing of the conversation. That it could just be that if they have been cornered, you've kind of proven that there's no way for them to avoid a capture, so just give it to the other team because they've clearly played the game well enough to get them into a position that this is their only option. I don't know. And part of the problem is that if they're playing like this, they are going to be on the portal, not on the end zone tile itself. And if they're on the portal and not the end zone tile, then you have to add extra cases where it's if they get popped while on a portal that's bordering an end zone tile or on the end zone tile itself. So you start to get into the weeds of what constitutes an actual pop for turtling on an end zone tile. Yeah, the argument's more they shouldn't be able to do this. I don't know. I see it. I see what you're going for. Iodized salt. I'm just not sold. That's going to be a discussion. Again. Will require further discussion. This uses a built-in game mechanic and is not against the rules at the moment. Okay. Remap key for music controls. I think that's planned already. There's one for like remapping everything, if I'm not mistaken. Let me find that real quick. Remap. Yeah. Allow remapping of all. So this is scoreboard keybinds, the name of the gonna merge that into there. So everything's going to be remapped, everything basically. Minigame timer removal. I noticed minigames have a 3-second timer when a casual game is found. If possible, remove that timer, but keep the option to go to the casual game available. I see. So they want the option to decline their casual game, I think, if they're in a minigame. Well, we can't keep it up if it's because somebody else is going to take your spot. So it's not like it's just a standing offer for you to join that casual. Somebody else is going to have that spot if you don't take it. So it's not a thing that we can really do. But we can... In theory, we could have the option to decline a casual game. Somebody else would take your spot and you're just in that game. But I think the real question is, do we want that? Because if we have mini games, they're supposed to be like a holding space where you're not ready for a casual game yet because there's no casual game to join yet. But once it's there, you're supposed to be over there. That game might have started 3v3 expecting you to be there. Now, if you decline it, you're leaving them in a 3v2 and you're alone in a mini game. I don't think that there are enough use cases where this is a valuable thing to allow players to do at the current state of the game. Hello, the slightest. It's going pretty well. Hope you had a nice Christmas yesterday if you celebrate, or anything else going on. That's good. I haven't seen you in a while, actually. It's been a while since we've crossed paths. But I'm doing well. I hope you are too. So, with the minigame timer. Minigame timer. I don't know. I'm going to go with no on this one for now. Because this is the kind of thing that would be good with more players if we had like a minigame queue to play minigames, but they're just supposed to be a holding space. Minigames are only serving as a holding space For now, allowing players to decline will lead to 3v2 casual games, and also if you are matched with a casual game and do not join, someone else will likely take your spot, in which case there is no reason to leave the message allowing you to redirect. Yeah, I see what you're going for. This doesn't really work with what we're currently doing. But yeah, thank you. So that's it for candy stuff. Again, if you want to submit any tickets, we will go through them every week. You can go to the feedback tab on the homepage right over here, and you can see all the stuff that we were just working on pop up right there. So there's the turtling in the end zone. You can see my response right there. So any questions you have, drop them right there. And if it's a question for the stream, check out the pins in the chat. So that moves us on to our feature building section. Sorry for the bright flash of light. This is our initial workings of a roadmap. We haven't really gotten into the tricky parts yet. All we did so far was list out all of the things that we want to work on at some point. This is missing a couple of features that we have built together on stream, because those have a document that does not have a ticket yet. So they're currently in the they don't have a name for their phase right now. The things that are still sort of being worked on require a little bit more discussion, but are pretty close to being done. When they are done, most of those would end up as release cornerstones. So if you're wondering where those things have been, like the, for example, the time trials thing that we wanted to add at some point, where it was like racing maps and gravity maps and figuring out who had the fastest times on those, that would be a release cornerstone, but that spec is still in development technically, so it's not something that we have a ticket for. So other than that, we have a list of all the things that we want to do for the game. Last time we had a stream, we were working on the ordering of the release cornerstones, with the current ones in development up top right now. We've talked about the custom egg ball maps and hockey maps, and then we've got the new player indicator, which is also in progress right now. So those are all in development. This is the order that I would prioritize these things if I get the choice as time goes on. So now we're going to move on to the much more aggressive and larger list of the QOL features, quality of living or quality of life features. These are things that we definitely want at some point, because it's a part of the game that functions as it is now. It's probably working in some capacity, but it's not the most straightforward from a front-end perspective. So somebody might come to the game, they might be able to play the game fine, but if we made these changes, it might make a certain part of the game or a certain visual effect, or it would make it more clear or more obvious what that thing does or how that thing works, or make it work as they would expect it to work if they had no previous understanding of the game or the site. So what we're going to work on now for the next 50 minutes probably, this is going to be a long one, is ordering this list and making sure that the things that we actually think should be most important are brought to the top of that list, so that as I get to the point of assigning these things to developers, we are working on the things that will see the best impact first, and then we can work our way down to the smaller stuff as we go. We're probably just going to do QOL for today. I don't think we're going to touch the could do it, but when, why just yet. These are lower priority things that are fun, could be added, could be neat, but aren't necessarily changing the game or moving the game forward on a short-term scale. So I don't think there's any better way to start than just to do it. I think we're going to bring this whole thing off to the side, though, because this is going to get a little messy if I'm right about this. So let's go through. I'm not going to read through all these just yet. I'm going to kind of just start moving stuff around, but let me know if you have any disagreements with what I'm saying out loud. I'll try not to ramble too much. And here we go. So zoom levels for mobile and new browsers, that's a 100% top priority right now. If you join a replay on a mobile app or on a Discord app or on a mobile browser or anything like that, the zoom levels are atrocious. You can't see the map. Sometimes it's like a little tiny dot in the middle of your phone that's this big and you can't see a damn thing going on there. It's completely useless. So mobile replays are basically inaccessible for all players right now, and that is not good. I think that's a very important thing that we should be fixing. Word capture when neutral flag refreshes in the end zone. That's the thing that would be cool to add. I think it would be nice. I don't think it's like a super critical thing. And what I'm going to do as I go through all these is just put them above or below anything that I see there now. And we'll see what happens. So additional group member options like changing name and flair, finding the profile of another player, and the mutiny feature. think that's probably fine to stay below that. It's not bad. Edit game cues. This is something that I want a lot, but I don't know if it's really changing anybody else's opinion. This is the ability to have like a full series queued up instead of just a single game for a single replay or for a single preset. Next win text. That's something that's bothered me for a while, and it's super, super easy to add. This is just saying if you go to any 360-degree player and you open up their profile, it says that their next degree is next win, but they have no more degrees, so that should be changed to not do that. Direct edit, add, remove default texture packs. This is a pretty big one. This would allow players to skip over things like the Choxy's TP themer. Let me pull that up for you guys. For those who don't know what it is, texture packs are kind of hard. They're not very approachable for new players, and I'd like to change that. So Choxy is a player in the community who made this site here, where you can customize a texture pack based on a lot of other texture packs. So maybe you like the flags of this texture pack, but you like the environment of this one, you like the walls of this one. So you can customize all of that. You can take the boosts that you want from different packs, and you could then export all of those as a single file. So it's a pretty cool feature. Hello, Toppy and Croissant. So it's a pretty cool feature, but it's not actually baked into the game right now. This is a separate website, and then you take all of this, you have to bring it back to the game. You have to go to your texture packs. You have to upload your texture packs. It's not very friendly of a process, and I think texture packs are a very important thing. People want the game to look a certain way. We do have some nice presets, but this does not cover everybody's personal preference, and I think that it would be nice for a game that sometimes struggles with visuals and having it look nice to allow players to pick what they actually want things to look like. So that's a pretty high priority one for me, is allowing players to go into the site and directly edit their texture packs. So I'm going to put that up toward the top. Fix player name and flare sizing when zooming out as a spectator. That is probably higher than the rest of the stuff here. It's somewhat similar to the mobile zoom in truth. So I'm going to put that up towards the top. That is not Uller Toppy. That is Croissant. Add blinker to sticky gates when they are returning to neutral. This is a thing that would be cool to add. It's probably not super critical. I'm probably going to put it below neutral flag and group stuff, but ahead of editing game cues. Incorrect 0-degree display on replays before November 29th, 2023. That's a very, very low priority. I think it's a good thing to fix at some point, but it's certainly not changing anything that we are doing Cornerstone. Yeah. It's a bug, but I don't know how many people are watching replays from before November 29th, 2023. It's not a super frequent event as far as I'm aware. So separate volume sliders for sound and music. I think that's a pretty big one. How big is the question? Is that bigger than player name and flare sizing? Probably. I think their player, well, this is one of those things that I think is going to be a different level of important for new players and experienced players. I think the players who have been around for a long time kind of have their comfortable whatever system they have it. For some of them that is no music at all, including myself. For some of them that's no sounds, also including myself. But I think that for a new player, they might have the expectation that they can do that. So I think this is actually a higher priority, not because I think anyone really wants it right now, but for players who are new to the game, I think this is something that would increase their comfort with the game. No sounds, you are crazy. Thank you. I'm a very silent-oriented person. I like quiet, but I do not try to impose that on others. So fix grabs counting in hockey game mode. That's pretty low priority, although if this is with the where did it go? If we add in custom maps and stuff in hockey and we're expecting players to play it more, I think this might be a higher priority. I'm going to set this off to the side because I want to come back to it when we get to a different section of the roadmap building. So fortunate maps ID and addition date to rotation maps. That's a pretty big one. I think that's very important right now. We just have a maps tab. It's kind of hard to know what this map is. Like, okay, this is a map. You know it's the map. You recognize this map. Maybe you open this in a new tab and you know, okay. Oops, where did it go? I thought I could. There we go. So you know this is a map that exists and you're aware of it, but how do you actually say, okay, I want to edit this map or I want to send this map to somebody? You don't have any way of doing that right now other than linking them this or going to a group and trying to find it in the maps drop down. So there are ways to find maps, but there aren't ways to actually edit and build and share maps right now because there's no connection to Fortunate Maps. And so if we had the ability to have those IDs and the date on it, I think that would be a really, really helpful thing for a lot of people. So I'm going to put that pretty much at the top, I think. Put that, yeah, I'm going to put that number 2, actually. I think that's a big one. Okay, so we got that. Oops, what the hell? Thought I could just, yeah, okay. Remove Mars Ball Siren from maps with enclosed Mars balls. That's probably pretty important because players who have sound on don't want to hear that repeat siren on maps like Lockhart that I just pulled up. So I'm going to put that also, oh my goodness, I thought this was easier. I'm going to put that also up top. Because that's something that's disruptive. If you're new to the game, you join in, you're like, what is that awful sound? You're not going to stick around very long if you have that in your ear on repeat. So, is it bad? I've never noticed the siren. I think it was bad on certain maps. Lockhart's one of the ones where you're not always next to that Mars ball, so you don't hear it as often. There are some maps where it's like the whole map was next to the Mars ball, so you just kept hearing it the whole time, and it was pretty bad. Mars Ball Phantom returns when embedded in walls. I think this is capture the flag specific with Mars Balls. Space Station, that might be it, yeah. We don't have too many Mars Balls with CTF maps, so this is important, but I think it's kind of along the same lines as awarding a capture with a refresh, where it'd be good, but it's not like immediately critical. Fix group names wrapping under flare when long enough. And if you're in a private group and a player is playing, I think it's easy if I just pull up the actual issue. So you'll see right here, this player's name is longer than the other player name, so it wraps down below instead of next to the flare. It's a super minor thing. I think we're going to put that pretty low. This is where things get tricky. I think it's probably around here. Low-key, not even a bad thing, IMO. Yeah, it's still an unexpected visual thing. Add ready check option to private groups. Yeah, this would be nice. I think this is mostly useful for the competitive leagues. I think I put this below this, but above everything else that we just talked about. And this list is not final, I'd like to be clear. This is something that if you're like, oh, I completely hate where Cheese put that, let me know. This is going to go through a full future group discussion later on as well. So give group leader the option to mute players in their group in game. That's a pretty high priority one. I think that, especially with the gravity group right now, they're missing a lot of features. I think that's one that'd be pretty big for them. And not just for that. You've got like competitive leagues and stuff like that where they have reasons to mute players in their groups. I think that option's pretty important. And I don't know quite how often smaller groups, because I know there are a lot of like random groups that pop up playing egg ball and things like that we see sometimes. I don't know if they would use these features if they want them, but I think that it's something that players play private groups. They don't really immerse themselves in the community that we have going here. I think it's nice to give them a little bit more autonomy over their own spaces. Did Cheese go over my feedback? I went through all the candy board posts. Hopefully I got to yours, Josh, in there somewhere. Replay filter games which did not count towards stats. This is one that I wouldn't use very often, but I think other players would. I think I'm going to put it under the ready check. It was merged into another feedback. That sounds right. Replace team name with the player name. Oh, when there's a replay going on, you want to hover over the tick mark and see which player actually scored that capture. That's pretty low priority. I think it'd be cool, but I think that's going to go down here. Add a new role for active MTC and display for volunteers. That's pretty big for me. I think that's actually going to go above this one here, where we don't have any front-end display of the current MTC. We only have historical MTC flares, which is kind of useless. I just know when I turn on the music, the song is changing constantly. Yeah, that was with Josh, it was the remapping one. Yeah, we have a ticket open already for remapping every in-game event that you can do. That includes skipping ahead songs and going back. So that is merged into that one. Allow customizable music rotation. This one's pretty cool. Kind of similar to the volume sliders one. I'm probably going to put it in the same place. Well, it's not as critical. So I don't know, this is tricky because this is the situation where this one might not be as high a priority as something else, but if we did it, it would probably be done with this other one. So I'm going to put it next to this one because I think those would just go hand in hand regardless if we're already working on that section of the code. So this is going to kind of piggyback on the volume sliders one. Modify egg ball spawn points and never cross midfield. That's pretty important in truth, especially if we're going to be trying to promote egg ball a little bit more in the future after Steam and all that. Spawning on the wrong side of the map is kind of annoying. So we'll leave it there for now. That's fine. Award mobile flare after pencil flare for 3 wins for active display. So this is kind of a silly thing, but I think it's actually quite important to me. We want players to have a flare that is special if they are new to the game. We want them to feel like, oh, I did this thing and that's cool. I don't think the pencil really does that for players. I think the mobile flare is a little bit more of like a neat thing for somebody who joined the game for the first time on mobile. So I'm going to put this up higher. Definitely below the volume slider stuff, but I think it's better than, well, flare zoom is also important. I'm going to put it there. This will take another pass later. Should be a flare for playing your first game. You get your starter flare anyway for just joining the site, so I'm not super big on changing their flare right away because you join the game for the first time, you make an account, you get a bonus flare at the very start. So I think that's their identity already. I don't think they need that extra kind of like, hey, you did it, you played a game, because they already got one, you know. So they get one after their first win, I think. What do they get? You get to pick any of the annually recurring flares for your first flare. You can pick from the what are they? I can't pull this up in front of me right now. Never knew that. Yeah, we added that with the new player onboarding system. Yeah, any player who creates a game for the first time, they get a page that I wish I could show you right now. It's pretty happy with it. Maybe I can show you. Can I do this? Let's see. Yeah, okay. So this is the page you get when you're new to the game. You get this page right here. So it says, welcome to TagPro. Let's customize your profile. You pick a name that you want, 12 characters, and you pick one of these starter flares. So these are the annually recurring flares. You pick your first flare, and it says you can earn more flares when you join the game. And that's why you'll see new players with one of these flares, because they got to pick which one they actually want to have at the start. So this is the first thing you do. The next step is picking your texture pack. We give them a list of texture packs and then controls, and then we send them off into the game. So it takes about 30 seconds. It's a pretty straightforward process, but it allows players to have a reserve name from the start, which was a problem early on, and it gives them a little bit of an identity because they can pick one of those flares. And these are the annually recurring flares. Anybody can earn these if they wait a couple of months. You just got to get to that right date, and that's the right choice, obviously. So yeah, that's the thing that we have added, and I'm pretty happy with how it is right now. So back to our roadmap here. Fix incorrect, where am I? Vert game and mercy rule settings when disabling map test mode. This is higher priority just because it's unexpected behavior right now. I'm not going to explain that again right now. Allow single team events to receive odd player counts from the joiner. This is lower priority until we have Steam up and live because we're pausing events. So I'm not too worried about this one right now. So I think for now, this is a low low priority, but when we get events back up and running, this would be a higher priority. Item, remove event master profile flare border when earned if no original event master flare. What is that? Oh, we have like the little double outline that says, where is it? The event master has a little double outline. It's kind of hard to see this, sorry. It's got like a little white border. If you don't own the two beneath it, I think the request is just to remove that because it's just a flare at that point. That's pretty low priority probably. Actually, it might be very, very low priority. Let's put that down toward the bottom. Did TagPro come up at all in dinner time discussions at Holiday? Yes, actually, people have unfortunately learned about what I spend all my free time doing, and it's been coming up more often recently. But I don't have much more to say on it than that. Just the answer is yes. Allow Mars ball reset without scoring on yellow team tiles. That should be one word. Let me edit. This is something that would be useful for gravity map makers, I think, is what they want. They want the ability to push a Mars ball to a certain spot without it moving away from them. This is expected behavior because it does the same thing on red and blue team tiles. So I think that's bigger than these, but smaller than these maybe. Close enough. Are you still the God Emperor that ball game? What was it, Protags? No, usually they say, how is your online stuff is the question that I get. That's the summary of what they call it. Because they don't really understand the game at all, which is fine. But yes. Add a spectate/replay option for follow flag carrier. That's a bigger one. I think people have been asking for this for a while. So I'm going to put that up toward the top. This is the ability to say you want to follow flag carrier only. You don't want to follow a specific player. So if the flag changes hands, you're going to follow that new player instead. And in that spec, we have capture the flag and neutral flag handling. I think this is going to go, not here, below the active MTC flare, because that's pretty important to me. I think I'm going to put it right there. Hey, Timmy. Preserve category header when scrolling through group maps. Is the music too loud, by the way? I forgot to ask that earlier. It's kind of loud in my headset, but I think my volume's just too high. Category header when scrolling through group maps. That's in private groups. If you're scrolling through the list of maps, keeping the header not loud. Thank you, Tabby. That's lower priority than these here for sure. I think it's probably about the same as group name wrapping, in truth. Yeah, that's going to go right there. Particle effects displayed when flares are disabled. This is something that really bothers me. I don't know why it bothers me so much. I think that's going to be somewhere around here. Next win text is kind of a similar thing. We're going to put that there for now. Fix uncapped max speed. Ask soup. What? Why are we asking Timmy to make soup? What the heck? I'll make you soup. Fix uncapped max speed with unlimited gravity jumps. This is probably important for the gravity community. Probably going to put it with the other gravity stuff. I feel like I'm kind of falling apart in my structure here. I think I need to just make tiers instead of a straight out list. Like if we do like a high and a medium and a low, and then we separate them out. High, medium, low priority. Let's make 3 different lists, and then we can talk about ordering within each one. So these are my high priority items. We need to space this out a little more. Okay. A lot of medium or priority things. Ah! Alright. These weren't tied to anything. These are separate. So, fixed grabs counting in hockey game mode. That's the one that I wanted to have tied to this. So I'll keep that over there. Move the header up top. Okay. These are lower priority items. Okay. Event master profile. All right, we're not going to worry about the order within these groups for now. We're going to go high, medium, low, and then we'll talk about orders within each category. So, incorrect 0-degree split, that's low. Map previews incorrectly displaying, that is medium because that's misleading. Uncapped max speed, medium. Game type filter for my games, that is high priority. Is my camera blocking the high? No, it's fine. Then we've got monthly leaderboard displaying all time in the past after a reset. That's the low priority because it's been like that for years and nobody really cares. And it only happens for like an hour. Pre-game launcher chat when all chat's disabled. That's medium because it's what people want to happen. If their chat's disabled, fix AFK warning after a game is ended. That's low because it doesn't actually hurt anybody. Don't kick players from minigames for AFK. That's a high priority item because players should be able to sit AFK in a minigame. It shouldn't matter unless it gets to overtime, the same as with casual games. Prioritize single player minigame when only one player is sent. That's high priority, QOL. Display pending or AFK tags on clock player indicators. That's high priority, so the players know when a game is imbalanced, so they know if they want to cap or not cap because somebody is or is not AFK. Fix maps missing from the maps page. And that's a high priority one. So right now, if the MTC changes a casual map, I have to go into the editor and update it directly because it's not working. Like the AFK one, yeah, like the 4 balls in the bottom, it'll show you if somebody has an AFK on their ball on the actual game, it'll show that on their little ball down on the scoreboard, which is pretty good. Customization of splats display time, that's a medium priority. You want splats to fade away after a certain length of time. Scroll wheel zooms in or out in replays. I think that'd be really cool. I'm not sure how priority it is, but I like the idea. You can zoom in or out just by using your scroll wheel on a map. Add newly earned flares to random rotation when selected. I think this is cool, but I don't think it's super critical. Display wins required for all future degree flares. This is currently in progress, so I'm going to set this off to the side. This was just assigned to a developer. I forget if I updated the ticket to say that. Let's go 576 and make sure that's updated. Relevant candy post. Add win requirement. This is now in progress. Ticket has been assigned to a developer, will be included in an upcoming release. And it's also a separate one, expand the win counter for flares. I should have merged these together, but I didn't, so we're going with that. Good enough. Moving on. Allow team swapping with AFK players for save. That's a medium. No, that's low priority. It's convenient. It'd be cool, but it's not changing the course of the game right now. Mark line between new and old chat when scrolling. That's another low priority just because I don't think it would be used that often. That's when you scrolled way up and you scroll back down, knowing which messages are new and which are old. Add a thicker line on the scoreboard above DNF players. That's another low priority for me. Cool to have, not game breaking in any capacity. Let's move all these up so we're not going back and forth so much. Oops. I think those are supposed to be tied together. Replace games played display with progress bar relative to others. That is lower priority. That's for the leaderboard. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping through these pretty quickly because I want to get moving here. It's saying games played, instead of showing a number here, show a progress bar. So like this person has a full bar because they played the most. Sorry, this person has a full bar because they played the most. And everybody else's bar is relative to that bar. And then on hover, you get to see the number of games. Just a nicer UI for like visual stuff. Sorry, apparently my filter blocks LMAO. I don't know why. Yes, thank you for fixing that for me. Add visual and or audio indicator when game is in the final minute. That'd be cool. We'll put that in medium. Change display color of names and notes in the replay column. That's going to be a low priority. I'm not going to talk about that right now. Mark ranked ready players to their teammates. That is a high priority item. So making sure players know in a casual game if their teammate is eventually or soon going to be leaving for a ranked game, just so that they can adjust their play style accordingly, because they might be disconnected at any moment. Mark players recently reported on the scoreboard. That is, I don't know how often people use this. I think it's a medium priority just because it's a pretty important functionality, but it's not something people are going to be using every single game or every single day. Setting for an audio cue when chat is sent to the launcher and in group chat. This is a medium one for me. I think it's cool. I don't think it's critical. Let's move those over a little bit. Allow multiple players to edit group settings. That's another medium one. Remapping of all keys and options. That's pretty big. That's the one Josh was talking about a minute ago. Group setting. Customize pregame countdown length. That is... I don't know. I'm kind of having, I'm debating myself right now. This is really useful for a very small number of people, but in practice, what does it actually change? It saves them maybe 10 seconds. Like, I don't know. It's such an easy thing to add too. It's not like it's going to take a long time. So I'm going to put it medium. If I could argue for high and low, I think that's a good enough argument for medium in its own right. Open external site links in a new tab. That's a high priority. Oh. Okay, let's separate these apart. Let's do that. In a new tab. Ensure refresh players weren't removed from rank before applying spawn delay. That's a high priority thing. I think I talked about that on my last stream. If you are in a casual game, get redirected to a ranked game. The ranked game voids. You go back to the joiner. You get put from the joiner into the casual game that you got redirected out of. The joiner says, oh, or the game says, oh, this player left the game. They get a refresh penalty because they came back. But it doesn't realize they got removed for ranked and then came back. So they didn't really have a say in the matter. So they should not get a 10-second respawn penalty for that happening. They should just join the game and be good to go. Allow seeking after replay is ended. That's pretty high priority because that's just not expected behavior. Well, it's expected in that it was built with that in mind. It's not expected from a front-end perspective. Players don't think that they should not be able to scan across the game after the game ends. Minigames, settings, and maps on the Maps tab, high priority. Players want to know what they're playing. Pass void vote to the second team if each loses a player. It doesn't happen that often, so it's not a huge deal, but it is a problem when it does happen. Well, I guess that makes it high priority because it is... Nah, I'm keeping it here. Screw it. Remove tips for public games from private lobbies. Low priority. It's been like that for years. Nobody's really cared. Offer additional playback speed options. Lower. Notify group members when they are waiting for a server slot to open. This is a high priority one because when you are in the joiner and you're just sitting there waiting for a pinwheel and you don't know why, we get reports that the game is broken. We get people asking if their servers are dying or things like that. It's just because there aren't any game slots open. So just that should be an important thing for players to be aware of. Is there a suggestion yet to still remove ELO from disconnectors even if the team with 3 votes to continue and wins? Oh, no, there is not a ticket for that yet. I'm aware of that request. I saw someone talking about that, but I did not see that on the feedback tab. That was a request that if you leave a game and your 3 teammates say, I think we can win, and they all vote to continue, and they do win, this request is for that player who did leave to still get the void penalty for leaving that game. Whereas right now, I think they either get no adjustment or they get the win. I think they get no adjustment in that case. So yeah, feel free to put in a feedback tab note for that, and we can put it in. Display wins required for next ranked flare and leaderboard activity. What? Didn't I just... It's the same thing. Are these two different tickets? 681576. Huh? Okay, I'll handle that on my own time. Don't want to waste yours. So, add skill score updates to the replay summary page. That is medium priority. Ranked flares versus degree flares. Oh, sorry. That's right. That's the that's saying on the leaders tab saying how many more wins you need. Yeah, that's high priority. Thank you, Grant, for putting that request in and for reminding me. Yeah, that's a high priority thing. We want that in so players know what they need to do to get their flares. Fix tier expansion text overlapping the active games drop down. That is on the select page. Ah. What? Oh, I logged in as a new player by accident. Okay, whatever. Not going to show you guys right now. That is medium priority. It's probably high priority because it looks really bad when it happens. Stupid LMAO filter. Cool giant green arrow. Yeah, it's very nice. Fix ranked tier names all becoming highlighted on the board. It's not really hurting anybody. Fix alignment of unranked names on spectate cards. That is there. When a game is live, the players who have not been ranked yet, they just have nothing. They have a flare instead, and it offsets their name. It looks really bad, and it's kind of confusing. Offer enable notifications prompt after voids and AFK kicks if it's disabled. That's a high priority one because we don't want players voiding games, so we want to give them the tools they need to stop voiding. I mean, I could just fix the filter, Grant. It's not really your fault for typing a very common expression. I have to look into that. It's all product of when I had the bots running and I was just going AFK on my streams. But now I actually keep track of the chat. So allow group leader to start games from waiting, medium. Enforce personal mutes for spectators, high. Modify notification sound based on volume slider instead of a set volume. It's kind of like the highest of the medium, the lowest of the high. We'll put it in high for now. And that's our full list. So now, do we want to break these down into groups, or do we want to just do a straight order within these, or do we want to keep them as their large group? We have 15 minutes to go before I'm calling it. Maybe we group these by type. Because the end goal, just thinking about where we're going with this, we're going from these lists into pairing QOL things with roadmap cornerstones. So I guess we want to, I think we want to group them by type, and then inside those types we can talk about priority. So we're going to go with, how do I do this? Can I make these smaller? Is that a thing? I can, and then I can zoom in. Ah, okay. All right, so in the high priority things, we have what separates what these are, I guess, is the next question. This is a thing that is like a visual thing. This is information, maybe. I'm going to play around with this for a second. I might just be talking nonsense for a moment. This is audio, but it's similar to visual. This is information. This is functional. I don't know. I'm going to go with this just to see how it looks at the end. I might decide to throw all this away. Visual. Information. Visual. Functional. Information, I guess? Sure, why not? Keep those together. This is functional. This is functional. Information. 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 This is a visual. This is, what is this? Functional, I guess. Let's go functional with that one. This is visual or functional? I think it's functional. Modify notification sound based on volume slider instead of a set volume. That is visual / audio. Okay. I think I'm actually pretty happy with that breakdown of things. Let's do the same thing for medium, because that will allow us to pick from certain buckets based on what we're working on. Like, are we working on a cornerstone thing that is functional? Okay, let's work with functional things. Are we working on a thing that's information? We can work on information things. I think that works. I might change that later, but I like it for now. Let's make you small. I should have looked closer at the exact size. Is it going to tell me? We're not there yet. Oh, maybe that's it. Good enough. All right. Same thing. Revert game time and mercy rule settings. That's functional. Allow new role. That's information. Spectate replay option. That's visual. Or is that functional? That's functional. Give group leader the option to mute players. That's functional. Egg ball spawn points. Functional. Particle effects. Visual. Next win. Information. Direct edit of default texture packs. That is functional, I think. Volume sliders. Audio. Audio. Cheap viewers. Oh boy. Get out of here. How do I? Isn't there like a ban button? Oh, there it is. Get out of here. All right. I keep doing that, man. Get up. Yes. Fix player name and flare sizing when zooming out. That's visual. Award mobile flare. That's functional. Is it? Yeah, why not? I'm the cheapest viewer. No, Timmy. No. Award capture when neutral flag refreshes an end zone. That's functional. Ready check is... It's kind of all three. Crap. I'm going to keep it with functional. Replay filter for games which did not count towards stats. That's information. Right? Wait. I'm going to keep it information. I might be wrong about that, though. Mars balls are any phantom returns. Functional. Group member options like changing name and flare. I don't know. I feel like everything going functional now. Mars balls to reset without scoring. These can't all be functional. What am I doing wrong? Map previews, that's it. Okay, that's visual, I guess. Uncapped max speed, that's functional. Pre-game launcher chat is functional. Customization of splats, that's visual. Scroll wheel, visual. Visual indicator, I think that's visual. Mark players recently reported on the scoreboard, that's information. Audio cue, visual audio. Visual audio, multiple players to edit group settings, functional. Group settings, customize pre-game countdown length, functional. Pass void vote, functional. Skill score updates to the replay summary page, it's information. Alignment of unranked names, that's visual. Group leader to start games from waiting is functional. Okay, not as even of a distribution, but I think that's close-ish. And now flow. Good enough. All right. Fix group names wrapping, that's visual. Preserve category header when scrolling through group maps. That is information. Add blinker to sticky gates when they are returning to neutral. That's visual, I think. Yeah, that's visual. Yep. Single team events receive odd player counts. That would be functional. Where'd I go? There I am. Replace team name with player name in replay. That is information because that information is not there right now. Create, share, edit game queues. That is functional. Event master profile borders visual. 0 degree replays 2023 is visual. Time in the past is information. AFK warning after a game is ended. That is I guess functional? It's kind of all of them, right? Visual? It's not supposed to be there, but it doesn't actually do anything. I don't know. It's just a bug. I don't know. It's not really any of these because it's a bug. So I'm gonna put it over in functional for now. I tried to remove most of the bugs from this list because they're just unrelated to feature stuff, but that one snuck through. Newly earned flares to random rotation when selected. That is, I don't know, flares are visual, but I think that's still a functional thing for what you do when you earn a new flare. Team swapping with AFK players. Marking a line between new and old chat is visual. Thicker line to the scoreboard is visual. Replace games played display with progress bar. That is, it's a different visualization of information. So is that visual or is that information? I think I'm going to go with visual on that one because it's not new information. It's just a different way of presenting the same information. Change display color of name notes. That is visual. Remove tips from public games. That's information. Playback speed options. That's functional. And ranked tier names become highlighted. That is visual. Okay. That went better than I thought it would, actually. So now we can take all these and bring them back together as an actual list. Do something like this. Okay, and I can make you all the right size again. Good enough. Oops. Okay. Cool. So that gives us a decent starting point for the workings of a roadmap. We've got a good spread of things. That's going to bother me. Let's fix that alignment here. Oh boy, what have I done? There's too many things that need to align with each other. Ah! What happened down here? All right, don't look. Nobody look at this. Just pretend it's not there. All right, that's that. We've got cornerstones. We've got QOL. And then next week we will work on could do it, but when, why. I think that, pretend what's not there. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. I have to fix this. This is going to kill me. Get there. Get there. And all of you get there. Well, I'm not good at this. I'm sorry. 6 of you are watching this. I'm impressed. Okay. Don't look too hard at the high, medium, low. Yeah, no. Oh boy. Whatever. If you're wondering why TagPro doesn't have the great visuals, it's because, yeah, that's why. All right, good enough. Good enough. Display wins all future degree flares is in progress. I'm just going to put that over there. And then next week we'll work on this guy down here. And then we will start talking about putting together actual releases. So just talking next steps. Glad you can make it, Timmy. Sorry that work is taking all your time up. So next week, like I said, we're going to put together the same thing for the could do it. Then we're going to build actual releases. So what we're looking at now is take a cornerstone and then try to assign all of the smaller QOL things that could go with it, and then all of the could do it when wise. So the hard part with this, and this is more of a thinking out loud thing, but we are, like I've mentioned several times, a volunteer team. So we don't have a set number of hours to put towards certain things. We don't have a set number of developers who can work on certain things. So what we do with releases is we pick things that we could do, and then we have to make sure that if they don't get done, that they get back into the list of things that could be done in the future. So that will require a little bit of discussion probably. And like I mentioned, we have a meeting coming up with the full future group. So we'll talk about a lot of these same things at that meeting. But I think that's coming up on our 90-minute cutoff. So I'm pretty content with how that went. Thank you for watching me struggle through that. Other things I forgot to mention. We have to figure out what we're doing for the season 1 ranked flare. Is it a public future group meeting? No, this is going to be a private meeting behind the scenes. But I will talk about it on stream after we have it. So public-ish in that capacity. But if you have ideas for a season 1 ranked flare, let me know. We have a couple of working theories, but we need to have something that everybody can earn. And again, if you missed it, the requirements for active are now 10 games per week. Only 10 games required per week per leaderboard. So CTF and NF, 10 of each to get on each board. And if you want to get the ranked flare for season 1, you only have to be active on 1 leaderboard. So I think that's all for me for this week. Thank you everybody for tuning in. I'll put the summary up on Reddit if you missed the first section. We went through development updates, so that'll be up in a couple hours. Anything else that you want to ask me, like I've mentioned before, check the pins for the question. There's a form. You can ask anything. I will answer it next week on stream or any week after that. And otherwise, enjoy the rest of your holiday weekend. Happy New Year if I don't see you between now and then. And have a good weekend. Where's my end stream button? Oh, there it is. Goodbye.